I have a few slides, very few, because it instead of going to code pretty much in an hour. So bear with me. And okay, a bit about me. The title here, if anyone has gone into Codeception, you can see how sad I am already. I started developing school at university in Texas, University, and most recently as a year, I've been working with partners. What did I do? I like to experiment with PHP frameworks. I usually play with them and realize, yeah, I can do this, I need to move on to the next one. I come up with a session with one media center. I just want to put that in there. It's still pretty geeky, but you know, it's not all today, so testing. I'm not really going to explain why you should test. I think a lot of you know. These are just bullet points I found that kind of sum it up. Best practice, confidence, one for myself. If your tests are passing, you know your code's pretty reliable. And any changes or functionality you add hopefully will not break things already in your code. If you want to contribute to open source projects, usually they'll take tests. If you don't have tests, then you can look at your code. So, okay. I'm flying through these because I was saying I want to find the code. Here's the tools that are available. These are in no order really, other than when I first started them. And I kind of jumped straight to Codeception. PHP unit being the fact that actually Codeception is powered by PHP unit. And I've put in test-driven development. In case any of you guys want to look up what they are, they could be a tough on their phones. So I'm just skipping right past that. And we will be doing computer-driven development of Codeception. What am I going to code? We're going to build a URL shortener. And just to kind of show you, the tests are written as scenarios describing an actual person or an actor or actor classes, which we'll get to as we run through it. Don't actually write these are generated for you from your config. So for our application, I will go back to this PHPBelfast as it is in a minute. We want to add some navigation, a create page or create my URL, a show page that we will use in our test, and then last we want to redirect off. So describing them as a user, an actor, right and say, submit a form, we are entry, visit our show URL. The last slide here is a few resources that if you go and get these sites afterwards, you can see the web pages that I used. I'm actually going to sit down and code for the rest of it, so please. This is our PHPBelfast as it was from the last day, and I just did this for you guys to see. You just want to get it yourselves, put it and start working with it. I've already got my environment set up to kind of save time. I've tried to cut this talk down a few times now to 1 hour. It's not the shortest, hopefully it will be quicker, but never it's really not. So. So I don't know if any of you guys have put the framework down yet, I'll play with it. I have already spun up my box here and SSH in, so we're working already with our files. First things first with Codeception. Let's get it installed. I don't have it just yet. There are a few ways to install it. For this demo, I'm going to use the FAR file. I just find it handier. I know what file I'm running. Execute my tests, so let's run through that. Okay, so once that's done, let's install the FAR file there. The next step, if you're reading the install instructions, is to bootstrap your application, which will create test folders and set up 3 suites by default. You can create your own suites, but as an introduction, we're just going to run with what comes default. say let's create our test folder with our bootstrap, each of our suites, the acceptance suite, the functional suite, and the unit suite. And you can see in the output here that is created from the modules for the functional tester, exceptions tester, and unit tester, some methods that we'll use. We're going to add some to our functional tester and configure the browser and the database settings, which we need to do before running any tests. I didn't do that before. I deleted an entire database content and structure, so it's pretty important to do that. Okay. So let's tell it where to find all our classes. We'll set up our first suite, so the acceptance suite. So we'll be running this on local host, so I'm going to move this from our URL. I'm also going to use the PHP browser for functional tests. So copy that into our functional suite and configure the browser and tell it we want to use PHP browser. And I'll show you that this end generates the active classes that we're going to use and gives it all our helpful methods. Another one that I want is the DB because I'm going to be working with the database. You can configure it in the functional suite, but read through the documentation there at the end, since it's so important to set it up in the global config for Codeception. So again, back to the documentation. You can see these modules here. I'll take the database one. And down the right hand side, you can see the methods that this adds to your active class. So with SIM, I'm going to create a test database, and we're going to use that for doing our test. Just from best practice and being done in the past, I think it's good to show it now, because if you just want to try it and go, you never told me about that, and it's just delete your entire database. So we'll need to create our active classes. So I've made configuration changes to the YAML files here, but we need to then build our active classes from that. And you'll see it's added a few more methods to the functional test. There are 64 methods as opposed to the 13. And that's our configuration done. I'm going to be creating URL shortener. We're going to need a table in our database for storing our URLs. And I'm going to update the seer that we have from before with our new table and the structure for that table. In this talk, I'm going to do a lot of copying and pasting, but that's to save time and hopefully follow. I'm sorry, guys.
There's a shortcut to this time.
And like I said, we need to make our copy of that we want to do our test into, so I'm trying to anything fancy, just use. Okay, and now we just last need to tell the app for test to use the test database and set our mode. Finish this step, we need to tell the database settings. If we're in test mode, use. Okay, get a value out of config, the mode. Use test. Our test database. Okay, we're almost ready to write the test, guys. Sorry, I thought it was important to run through this to see and set it up. So, if we configure those tests, okay. So, don't do this. Here, and I told you that I've done that in the past. In the config for Codeception, we had set up our database, and you can see here that dumps the database to test data and the dump SQL. Before each test and after each test, it cleared out your data. So if you run a test, it puts stuff into the data. You want to roll your database back. And the way this is done at the introduction level anyway is it takes a dump of your database, its initial state, runs a test and rolls back to that. And there are modules for some of the more popular frameworks that you can install that do database transactions and things like that. But there's not a lot of data in our database, and it really demonstrates the test. So I'm happy enough to do that for this talk. Okay, so let's take a talk. Password and username, just so I'm not giving away any secrets here. If I start mumbling, just say to me. I was pretty quiet, so you can probably hear me, but just let me know. Test. Data. There we go, have a look at our database. So when test run, it will put the data back in as it was our initial state. You can configure populate before test and clean up after test. They're the defaults. I'm going to leave them for now. I could show you every time again if I clean up the true, that will break some of my tests, but let's get started with the test. First test I want to write then is maybe just make sure everything's working. Start off with a welcome test. So we do Codeception, or you can see what's available to us. And you see that? Okay. Don't want to do that because I know you just what I see. Today I'm going to demonstrate the Codeception and the Codeset with a bit of time at the end, and also demonstrate the PHP unit, because even though it's Codeception, you can write PHP unit tests as you always did. For guys that are familiar with that and want to stick to that. So let's do our first one. I'm going to do this wrong to show you that there's a few arguments to pass. So it's asked for your test suite. There's the acceptance, functional, and the unit suites, and the name of your test. Generated a file for us, and that's our tester. Class that we don't actually need to write that, that's generated for us. So, our first test, describe them as you or our actor. So I want to, and that's kind of, if you remember my title slide, I honestly don't call it, that's where that came from. So, anyway, I want to see what comes in. Okay. You can see the output of the methods that are available to us. And like I said, you can add extra modules to get more methods in here. Like the database one, I now have ICN database, things like that. So I am on page. I'm on the home page. I see text welcome to. You looks on each one, but that's optional. So we should have a test here and Codeception. And our first test written pass. There's a few arguments you can pass to the run. We're going to do the HTML one because it's pretty neat. It gives you a nice report of your tests and dumps it into output. Also, when you test the field HTML is dumped into output, which can be helpful if you don't want to go into the browser anyway. So you can see this. I'll use this now and again as we go along and see what it shows us. There's that test. There's a output from that test. So what do we want to do? We're going to build the URL shortener. We're going to need navigation for that, and for our navigation we're going to need a root, controllers, and views to put our markup in. So I think we can build a test now for the navigation. Acceptance. So I want to browse. Hopefully you can see that I tried to marry up on my last slide. The actions I want to create on the create page, I want to fill in a form, I want to browse, so kind of the navigation and browse the site. If you look back on the site, it might marry up, but it would really just kind of lead into this. So I want to let's start on our home page. So we're describing here that you can see I'm on page, the home page, I click create and I see URL shortener. I'm kind of another test there, so I see current URL equals /URL. In the interest of time, I'm going to do all of this pretty much mobile, but you could see that you could do each step at a time. You know, I could create and write the code to make that test pass, then write the code for your root to make the IC URL equals, and then write the code for your view to see that the URL shortener text is on the page. But we'd be here all night, so I'm going to kind of fly through it. And if I'm going too fast or speaking too low, please let me know. So let's run our test and see. Right, it's failing. That's fine, we expected that. We're on page, home page, and I click create, and that's where we fail because there is no link saying create. Again, like I said, we can see in our output here what was actually on the page and why it failed. So what we want to need to do, we want to need a controller and a root and a view. In our root.php so that we can browse to that action. And our root, again, I'm going to copy and paste here. If I left anything behind it before, please shout out because I panicked last time when that didn't work. I know there's also going to be a show method, so I'm going to just copy that right now and get that to save me having to do it in a minute. Show action. There are other routes, but as we test them, we create them routes as we go along. So we should now have now two routes that will take us to the actions in our controller where we will need to display. been passing some data to the show, so I'm just setting up there, kind of remind myself. Our test will still fail, but our reason is going to be the markup for create is not there, so we can't create or click on create, which is why we need to then update our view with R. And I have a few live templates here, just kind of make things a bit easier. I've just had that prepared. I've created a drop down with URL, and then I have create and show to the groups that we just created. Test again. Okay, it's not failing for a different reason. So again, you can do that permanently instead of all on the board like I'm doing here. The reason it's failing now is it doesn't see URL shortener on the page, so be able to browse to it. And we now go to our views table. We told that there's a URL index on click, but there isn't. So we need to create them and we can test pass. And we demonstrated in the last day about how to extend our templates, and we can see here that we have a header block and a content block, which we're going to need in our two views. So let's extend. It's there. And we'll put our two blocks. This is actually what's going to make the test passes our URL shortener text. And then in our block content page, we have another live template since we're using Bootstrap, I have Bootstrap form live template. And our test will pass it now, but if they don't, and you can see the report will be updated with our new tests. Have I gone too fast, or is everyone following? It is okay. Sure. Okay, so we have our navigation now. I haven't wrote a test taken on the show, but you would do that yourself or take it as a screen and that test works. So, okay. Next part there, suppose we need to do something when the user fills in the form. We need to either save it to the database, check for the URL already in the database, and show the user a great or a successful message and their shortened URL. So we can write another test for that. And this time I'm going to use a functional test because I want to check in the database did it actually save the entry to the database. So there's a bit of work to that. We'll start creating our model, our repo now. So let's start by writing our test. Our test should fail. Well, then we can pass as we work through it. So we'll run this to the functional stream. We'll call it create short. And then our test folder for if there's time towards the end, I'm sure you noticed that these are all procedural, and they're going down on this. There's a sess file, which is a class-based way of doing the exact same thing. It takes 2 minutes to show, so at the end of it, and once through that, it shows that you can start structuring your tests and reuse pieces of code instead of having to type URL all the time. You just save yourself a bit of effort when you're writing tests. Okay, so I want to create. Let's see. You can see it's kind of getting a bit more readable. I want to, I see in the database which we want to use now. It kind of makes it that anyone could look at this. If you have managers that want to see your test, okay, you can probably show them the reports, keep them happy, but anyone can look at the code and kind of work out what's going on there as well. So fill a field. I know that I have a field called URL here, and your developer know as well. I think, if you're wondering how I know that, I've done this. Pretty short URL with, this is the value, PHPBelfast. And then when you fill in the field, as a user, you would click submit. So this, there is a method for I fill form which you can pass parameters to, but this is just nice and simple and does the same thing and demonstrates pretty well. So when you click submit, you want it to add to the database. So I see in database table or URLs table. What do you expect to see? An ID. The URL of what that is our PHPBelfast. If you're wondering where I got that from, I use base 36 and convert the ID from 1 to base 36, and it gives me a number between 0 and 9 or letter between A and Z, so 3 range of the alphabet. We'll write a test as well to demonstrate that, and I have included in the notes a link off to why I got that, where I got B Z and W. I didn't make it up. So our test should fail, and there's a lot going on, there's a lot we need to do. This is kind of a big test, so once we go through this, most of them are pretty short, or the rest of them are pretty short. Okay. So I click submit, and I see in the database, well that fails, and there's a few reasons for that, so let's kind of run through them. We need to set up our model for our URLs. And one thing that stopped me for a while, because I was using me and we picked it up in the last talk as well, is this protected fillable. And that's because the value's been filled in a form, and we're saying yes, it's safe to take the value from the form here. So that's that. You don't need to touch that model, we need the rest that's set up for us. And we'll need our repo, which will get the information for us from the database. So, I don't know if a lot of you guys were here the last time or had a chance to check that out, but Andy talked through this. So if you want to have a quick recap, the videos are on the YouTube channel, and these will end up on the YouTube channel as well eventually. So. Let's get back to our controller and handle our root side. We need to handle the posting and where to send the posted data. So back to our roots, and we want to use the same path URL. Only this time it's going to be a post method instead of get, so we can send it to a different action. Send it to our store action if we want to store it in our database. So that's the roots handled, and we need to then create in our controller something to handle that storing. What we want to do? We want to first of all check database, and if something is found, we can then send that back to user. We've already got that, use this. If not, let's create it, format our URL, and send it back to the user as well. So, so URL check it by URL because it's going to be a URL we fill in on the form. So we want to check, does that exist in our database? Yes, brilliant, does it? If not, let's create it. So that URL was in our form only in the post, so we'll get that from app request. Post. Get the URL, that was the name of the from our form. So it's still going to fail because we haven't actually written our get by URL method. We're going to test now. It won't change because it's still at the same point that it doesn't see that in the database. We haven't put it in the database, and we're good away from that. So let's tell our app about this URL repo, which we can do in our setup. We have the post repo, and now we're going to tell it about our URL repo. This is pretty neat. I find this method first for create. It'll try and find, and if it doesn't, it will create it for you, and then return you the ID that we want to get from when it gets created, which we're going to use to generate our short URL. So what I want to do, we want to find that URL and give it to it. So our controller now will either get a URL or an entry from the database back, or a new one created. It's not in the database, so we need to generate our short URL. That will kind of tell us it's not in the database, we don't have a short URL for it, so let's make one. It's the next step for it. For now. If that has to do that for you, let's just save that to the database. Save our short URL back with the entry that we just got from our database there. Then send it back to the user for creating one last image for the URL. Unique at the minute, which is not finished. Our test will still fail. We are expecting the CP set with WA, but the next step, which will also introduce the unit testing, is when we generate the short loop. Our test. So it has done an entry into the database, but our test is still failing because I have hard with the word make as a kind of reminder let's do that. And on our test, we said we expected the CP set of WA. So we need to then have some way to generate our short code, save that to the database. And this is where I'm going to, even though I haven't finished that test, I'm going to introduce unit testing for Codeception. So we need utility controller, convert controller. Has it been easy enough to follow along with a minute? Okay, like I said, I used base 36 for this, and I've added this multiple just to to make it a bit interesting, and that's just today's date, because the demo 1 and 1 is not very helpful to do. So we're using today's date, and we're in the temp one to get reset every day. So that's how I can do that, and that's in the resources as well, if you want to check it out. So we could use that right now, and it will still feel like it's going to have the app about this class just yet. So we'll go back to setup. We'll pass that test and then we'll write our test for the PHP unit kind of backwards, but I want you to, this test will now pass using that to convert. So this. And what is it we want to convert to PHP? We want to convert the idea that's going back to the database. And that test should pass. And we can see in our database that it's put in our short URL. Moving on then, let's test the convert class pretty quickly. And the only reason I'm showing that is to kind of show guys that are used to PHP unit that you can still use PHP unit with Codeception if you want to get the best of both worlds. In the unit suite and convert. Has anybody any questions so far? Or is it kind of just let's get through it and see it done? Okay. In our unit test suite, this will look familiar to a lot of people, I'm sure. And we're just going to write 2 simple tests, test then convert 2 and from base 36 as expected. So I like to describe them instead of rethinking the word test, and just put this and tell it to test from this test lead. Okay, setup with our what is it we want to test? What's the act we're going to actually want to convert 2 base 36 will give us back to string. 2 base 36, we know that 1 gives us back D7WA. And let's just check out this. And then I'm asking I don't think I need to do both. I don't know how much time, 20 minutes left. So and that's one that you test. You can see the test results. It's supposed to be a good time. We can also your updated report. Run just a suite on its own. You can even run just one test on its own if you want to type that in. If I want to just test the unit suite, run. And the name of the suite that you want to run. Let's just run the unit test. I want to move on from that. I did, under rehearsing this, convert from base 36, but I think this gets across the point. You can use PHP unit and we'll move on to the show our created short URLs, and we also be able to redirect somebody else to short URL that they created. So never done the show. I guess I'll have that this time. The header for the show is just going to be short URLs. Table, just use a bootstrap table to show them. So again, it's a lot of codes dumped out there, but it's just a table, and then the URLs are just read through them, show the full URL, short URL, and it's a table. Next test there. Create and show. Okay, yep. So this is going to show off taking text from the page and then using it in your test. So let's create a new test because we want to add a new short URL on the URL page, browse the show page and check that it's there. It's kind of another way of also testing that it actually insert the database, because on the show page we put in data from the database. So this is an acceptance test. What we want to do in this test, we want to create short URL and view on the show page. Again, back to the I might do this, I do that. So I am on page URL. You can see that I'm repeating myself here, but there are ways to have chunks of code you can use throughout all your tests. It's kind of in the advanced section of the Codeception, so I won't be going near it, but it's possible. So. And when we done this test before, we then went IC and database, and that was us using the database module and a functional test. Now it's kind of, imagine it's your boss checking it, and he wants to click, and then he wants to go to the next page and see that it's there. So we've filled in our form, click submit. We should then get like a success message. So let's say IC grid. Site grid will be the link. So let's take that link. Sure. I'm going to grab the text from the file that I have the alert in. So let's see. And then what do we want to drag it in? Click. Show, which will take us to our show page, which will have the table of all of the entries in this. I click show, and on that page I expect to see short URL like graph with the success message on the previous page. So I see short URL. Okay. So that will fail because we haven't, first of all, done our view, we haven't done our find all from the database. So let's run the test, see that it fails, and write the code to make it pass. So we're going to, I click submit, I see grid. We haven't marked up yet, that will show them the success again to save time. I have it generated. If it worked, grid, spam and ID, alert success, and our short URL. So in the controller, this controller here, so this store the database. back to the same page with our updated URL. We should pass it. So we're a little bit further. We see that the grades there, since I added that bit of markup. Grades there, we click show, we browse the page, but we don't see our list in the table. That's because in our show method in the controller, it does not. So let's get them from the database. We're just going to get the short code, which isn't very good if anyone wants to click on it. This is still on class, but we haven't even, are still on fail, we haven't done our get all methods. It's just the same. Timestamps in the CR created. Now I might get the database. Format URL so that the click for a reader and send them back to review. The last thing, which is the URL shortener needs to redirect off to the full URL. So let's write our test for that and make sure that it works and it passes. So let's generate a new acceptance test and we'll call this redirect. Go to this short URL. So stick with the example of how these items will relate. So I am on PHPBelfast, which is our short URL. And then as it redirects off, I want to say I see response is 200. So I'll just and we should our PHPBelfast website, and then it says in the title of that, I see in the title PHPBelfast with a space. Okay. Another useful flag to pass with run, and this really helped me work out what was going on when I first done this, was the debug. You can see the headers come back from I'm on PHC. There's a bit more detail there. It kind of lets you see what's going on. And I said I'm on PHPBelfast. It's going no, we're not. So why is that? I don't have a route that will check the database, find the entry, and do the redirect. So we need to now write a route that will handle that for us. Which we short, and we're going to send it to say a check, action check. Does this exist? We'll have some conditions on this. Conditions. So our conditions we want short be of 8 characters and have at least have one now, let URL, call the controller check, which we haven't written yet, so our test is still failing. Which is why I started doing URL. We have our shortcut passed into the method for testing, and I have a particular check our for service. From is 36. Should give us back our ID that we can then use to find by ID in the database. So sure. Okay. We haven't actually written our find by, so in our repo, we can do that now. We want to find by our ID. URL. Now we need to get that. We've got our ID, we now need to get our URL using the method that we just created in the repo. So URL equals consistency from the method get. So get by. So if we have a URL, what we want to redirect. That was the whole point of the URL shortener. So if we have our URL. There is no URL found in the database, and we just pass back to the app, and that will have throw for page on file. Let's run the test and see if it's passed and works. Turn off the keyboard now. Okay, that has this redirect, and that is the last test that people on here just did. So what I want to show you is the SES way of doing things instead of the SEP file. It's pretty quick, so take no time on it now. I'm really like to see that you don't have to do everything all the way down. You can start to structure your tests and use classes. So let's do that. This time we're generating a SES, and it's an acceptance. Create short URL and a good SES at the end that says SEP, so that will put an issue in our folder here. To show that it's pretty much the same thing, I'm going to actually just copy the code from create URL SEP, which I can't see. That's why I put it in our folder, guys. It's a functional test. Our SES file, our SEP. And we want to do the exact same thing this time. You can see that it's kind of set up slightly different. And if you want to use the before and afters, you can do it. So let's see, should create short URL. No, actually, I think all the public methods are tested anyway, but I'm just consistency when I'm writing test. You can see that will pass, but why I wanted to show this off, I have duplicated here PHPBelfast, and I'm sure I'll show as well that protected methods don't actually get tested. Fill form. And we can have copies in the class to save us just in the account. You don't want to always have to write PHPBelfast, PHPBelfast. Okay, so our page, which was slash URL. Use our class variables throughout our code. You can see already that this will save you duplicating PHPBelfast all the time. I'm on page. This test will pass. So I wanted to show that to kind of hopefully straight away you can see just by creating this protected method, you can start putting code into useful methods for yourselves. There, in the advanced section of the Codeception website, there's page objects and step objects, which I recommend when look at. We're definitely out of time and a bit out of scope for an introduction anyway. Our report should be updated now with all our tests, and our website should have a functionality ready. I have the database or the application currently in test mode. I'll just quickly change that and sure I'll just switch it. I haven't actually done this for my demos, but it's fine. I have those. Data in test mode. Check fine. Guys, create. And then our show page. Like looking front and side. Okay. And that's it, guys. That's 1 hour. I'm pretty pleased with that. I don't know if these are all bored to death or find it interesting, but I hope you can see that it makes testing a little bit more interesting. I think anyway, it's a good way to just kind of describe what you want to pass and kind of make it pass. And granted, I've done a lot pretty quickly, but I didn't do that first time. It took me a while to build it up and run my test. So hopefully you find something that is pretty useful. Thank you very much.